I'm Kirk Coburn with Surge Accelerator. You know, the vision that we have with Surge is we're kind of picking up on a few major trends that we see happening around the world. Number one is software is eating the world. And so we took a look at that. We said, wow, we think that there's some disruption that could be made as it applies to energy. So we really focus on entrepreneurs that are solving the world's energy problems using software. And why do we get to that is, for one, we're in Houston, the energy capital of the world. Number two is we're one of the largest IT services economies in the world. We have the banks, the trading shops, and then the energy companies themselves are some of the most innovative companies designing some really interesting technologies to find and extract our natural resources. But all in all, we have a huge development community in Houston. With that being said, we're also a fully deregulated and competitive utility market. So when you look at the entire energy value chain from upstream, which is exploration, all the way down to electricity that consumers can try to save and be efficient, Texas runs the gamut, and we're experts in the entire chain. So we looked at that saying, why don't we create an accelerator that focuses on what we really know well? Because we know the customers, we have capital here, we have the community behind us, we have the tools, and so that was really the idea. And we said, you know, software is eating the world. So, you know, with the major oil companies, which now have pivoted and they're energy companies because they truly are trying to not only look at natural resources but use renewables. We looked at that and said, you know, the majors used to own 85% of the world's energy reserves. Today they have less than 15%. That's a big change. And what could happen if a software company or a software revolution came and kind of changed what that world looks like? And so we kind of look at Mark Andreessen's idea of software eating the world as a big milestone for that. Number two is, in energy, there's something that is known as the great generational crew change. Most of the leaders of energy are baby boomers, and over half of the employees in energy today are Gen Y millennials. And so there's this huge gap between the people running the companies and most of their employees. And what we know about the Gen Yers and the millennials is that they're technology dependent. They look at the iPhone as something that they have to have, and so how they do business is going to change. We think that's a big reason for innovation disruption. The third piece is this idea of energy has traditionally been, over many years, has been centralized, where there's only a few major companies that control a lot of the know-how. Well, what we know is a friend of mine wrote this book called Starfish and the Spider, and the concept is in centralized industries, they become decentralized because there is a revolution that happens and profits get redistributed. And we think that today is a time where you're seeing that with software development. What used to cost $150,000 a month to develop costs $1,500 a month. What we see is guys like Rackspace in the cloud that can help companies scale very quickly overnight for very little money. And so we're here in Houston to try to be part of that disruption to help energy become more efficient by enabling entrepreneurs to truly find customers in the space, find traction, find capital, and we're not sure where it's going to go, but we're in the middle of it. So, I mean, that's kind of that was the idea behind it. And since then, we've raised a significant amount of money to fund these companies. We've talked to the energy community. They're all very excited about what's happening. They agree that this is a good time to be involved. So in energy is a relatively closed and quiet and secretive type of industry. I think people have been open to sharing their ideas with us. They've been open to giving our companies pilots or opportunities. That's been a huge breakthrough. And what we've heard from the West and East Coast, where there's been a lot of capital raised for clean tech, they're starting to realize that natural gas potentially is clean, but really energy software is clean, and that software itself can do a lot that heavy iron used to do. With that being said, what we've heard is there's a hard time. These VCs and others have a hard time finding quality deals, and so we've really landed ourselves in this space where we think that we're doing a really good job of finding good entrepreneurs that are really solving big problems, and leveraging some of the know-how that's current today, which is kind of cloud technology, big data. I mean, those are kind of buzzwords, but those are really where a lot of the disruption's happening, because you can do a whole lot. And when you look at looking upstream at exploration, when you look at that environment, I mean, finding oil and gas, the software programs and platforms that are being used to discover, the processing is weeks and weeks and weeks of processing, because there's so much data, there's so much information about what's beneath the dirt, that it takes a lot of processing power. Well, we have companies trying to disrupt that and move what traditionally is run on kind of gigantic workstations. Why don't you move that to the cloud? Now that would be disruptive in many ways, because the oil and gas companies aren't used to working in an environment where you can leave your office and use an iPad to do work. That's one big change. So there's a change that needs to happen in that perspective, but also just technology. That's going to be a major change. A lot of these platforms that we see today in energy are old. It's old code. So we really believe in that being a disruptive moment. Then you look downstream in energy, you see like the true smart grids. We have companies that are really trying to take the smart grid and make it smart, really make it smart by enabling all these devices. We have all these smart meters. We have one of the largest deployment of smart meters in the state of Texas. Well, today no one knows really what to do with that data. How do you capture the data? How do you read the data? How do you actually make sense of the data? And how do you actually make it actionable? So we have companies working on solving that problem. And then we even have companies working all the way to the consumer, trying to actually leverage consumers to be their own potential virtual power plant. Instead of, in Texas we talk about these rolling blackouts that are going to hit us in August because everyone turns on their air conditioner and cranks it down. We have to build another power plant to meet that demand. So instead of doing that, why don't we just gather a whole bunch of consumers together and ask them to maybe turn up their AC a few degrees? Well, we have companies trying to solve that problem, leveraging social media, leveraging the power of gathering a bunch of people together. So we're trying to solve that, and we're trying to find companies that are looking across the entire spectrum, and we're connecting them to this incredible community in Texas of companies that are really interested in finding solutions, and they've never had worked with startups in the past in a real way, because there's no one that's really been active in trying to do that. So I think we're on to something. I think we're early. We're going to figure out what happens here, but we're having a blast doing it. So that's the idea. That's the vision.